Good morning. Good morning. My name is Melissa, and I'm an alcoholic and a recovering addict, and in recovery of many things. I'm going to start step three. I got to go out of town in about 40 minutes, so I wanted to make sure that I started this before I left. All right, I don't know which one to do first. Okay. Um, so in the big book, all right, so it says that I am all over the place this morning, and it was brought to my attention that I say an entire amount that I should not say. So I'm going to work on that. All right, moving forward. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So, practicing step three is like opening the door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is the key and the decision to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself. And looking through it, we shall see a pathway beside which is an inscription. It reads, "This is the way to a faith that works." In the first two steps, we were engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA, itself is possible to anyone. These conclusions did not require action, they require only acceptance. Like all remaining steps, step three calls for affirmative action, for it is only by action that we can cut away the self will, which has always blocked the entry of God, or if you like, a higher power, into our lives. Faith, to be sure, is necessary, but faith alone can avail nothing. We can have faith, yet keep God out of our lives. Therefore, our problem now becomes just how and by what specific means shall we be able to let Him in? Step three represents our first attempt to do this. In fact, the effectiveness of the whole AA program will rest upon how well and earnestly we have tried to come to a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. To every worldly and practical minded beginner, this step looks hard, even impossible. No matter how much one wishes to try, exactly how can we turn his own will and his own life over to the care of whatever God he thinks there is? Fortunately, we who have tried it and with equal misgivings can testify that anyone at all, can begin to do it. We can further add that a beginning, even the smallest, is all that is needed. Once we have placed the key of willingness in the lock and have the door even so slightly open, we find that we can always open it some more. Though self will may slam it shut again, as it frequently does, it will always respond the moment we again pick up the key of willingness. Now, I'm just going to say, without using the word that I am an Indian giver of a sort. I have been so bad about it. I always say, let go, let God, give it to God. But I still have a problem giving things to Him. And then when I have like a memory of something, I will take it back. And it's hard to do. I said not So moving forward. All right. Maybe this all sounds mysterious and remote, something like Einstein's theory of relativity or a proposition in nuclear physics. It isn't at all. Let's look at how practical it actually is. Every man and woman who has joined AA and intends to stick has, without realizing it, made a beginning on step three. Isn't it true that all matters touching upon alcohol, each of them has decided to turn his or her life over to the care, protection, and guidance of Alcoholics Anonymous. Already a willingness has been achieved to cast out one's own will and one's own ideas about the alcoholic problem in favor of those suggested by AA. Any willing newcomer feels sure AA is the only safe harbor for the foundering vessel he has become. Now, if this is not turning one's will and life over to a newfound providence, then what is? But suppose that instinct still cries out, as it certainly will. Yes, respecting alcohol, I guess I have to be dependent upon AA, but in all other matters, I must still maintain my independence. Nothing is going to turn me into a non-entity if I keep on turning my life and my will over to something or somebody else. What will become of me? I'll look like the hole in that donut. This, of course, is the process by which instinct and logic always seek to bolster egotism and so frustrates spiritual development. The trouble is that this kind of thinking takes no real account of the facts. And the facts seem to be these: the more we become willing to depend on God, and the more independent we actually are, self will. Therefore, dependence, as AA practices it, it really is really a means of gaining true independence of the Spirit or God. All right, so I'm going to stop on that part. And that was step 3 out of the 12 and 12, which is on page 35 and 36 that I just read. 34 to 36. Okay. All right. And then out of the big book, where he starts talking about step 3 is, gosh darn it. This was, I'm on page 12, and I said, again, I'm on page 12 of the big book, 4th edition, Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, thus I was convinced that God is concerned. This was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. As at long last I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me, and he came. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by the worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And so it had been ever since. How blind had I been. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirious tremens. Wet brain, I guess, is kind of what that is. There I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away root and branch. I have not had a drink since. So when he says root and branch, all right, that's getting into your 4th step, and that's getting into your listing your shortcomings, your character defects, and they say when you're rooted into things, like my church is, they talk about your roots, establishing roots. The stronger your root system is, meaning the more you learn, the more you go to church, the stronger your tree is, the stronger your branches are, the more your fruit is going to be able to, so when they say take away my root and branch, that's a whole system. That's an entire, that's everything. So when And that's when it says your life and your will, that's a whole 360. That's big. It's an entire change. And that's what I had to do. I had to leave my home, my people, places, and things, and I had to change. There was no other way around it, because if I stayed in Indianapolis, I would be dead by now. Point blank, period. Okay. And I just felt like I wanted to not die. I wanted to live. I had something to live for. Okay, moving forward. Now I'm reading out of the Life Recovery workbook. And this is the first page of it. It says, step 3. Jay couldn't understand why life was always so difficult. Someone was always on his case. If only his boss wouldn't be so demanding. If his wife would keep off his back about things, he'd be a lot happier. And the kids, why wouldn't they listen? Why did they have to learn everything the hard way? Sound familiar? Why wouldn't they take his advice? Jay had a problem with constant anger. Also sound familiar? He was always upset and off balance about something that didn't fit the way he wanted things to go. Someone or something was always messing up his plans. Excuse me. He became furious when no one, oh my gosh, excuse me, it was rude. He became furious when no one would listen to his plan, his advice, or his way, which of course were better than anyone else's because of his superior intelligence and vast experience. Does that also sound familiar? It does to me. I'll admit that. So, all right. Anger had become a way of life and a way to show power, a way to feel intensely without intimacy, and a way to shut people out. He needed the anger because he was unable to be vulnerable enough to let anyone know how insecure and inadequate he really felt. It worked for him. No one wanted much to do with him for very long. In time, the stress and loneliness of trying to manipulate and control the world left him feeling hopeless and depressed. He had to find another way. Jay sought God's guidance through a trusted person and began a process of recovery. In learning to apply the 12 steps of his life, he came to accept his powerlessness over others, other events, and even over his anger. When he reached step 3, he saw that the problem wasn't everyone else, it was his expectations, demands, and need to feel safe that drove him to try to control everything. His challenge was to have enough faith that God cared about his job, his family, his needs, and his dreams to turn them over as the step suggests. He had been a Christian, but could he truly let go and allow God to be on the throne? And even I cannot read this morning. It's because I'm trying to hurry. I already know. Sorry. We'll try this again. He had been a Christian, but could he truly let go and allow God to be on the throne, even in his everyday events and relationships? Could he let God take them and let go of his anger? He was experiencing enough pain, loneliness, and despair that he was ready to release all of these burdens to God. He prayed that God would accept him even with his fear, anger, and pride, and help him to construct his life according to God's will. Jay gave up his own plans, expectations, and outcomes since God's will and plans were more suitable. He let go of his own will by trusting that God cared for him. He asked that God would help him to transcend his troubles in order to bring him glory. Jay had completed step 3. After doing so, he saw that his life had a different motivation to please God and to do his will. It was not God's will to be angry at everyone or expect everyone to live up to his expectations. This meant that he could make plans, but the outcome was in God's hands. He learned to suit up for life, show up, and leave the results to God. The burden of manipulating every detail of his own and others' lives was lifted because he could now see that the outcome of others' lives and was God's business, not his. So that's always that was always, my problem as well. Like in the big book it says to play the actor. If everybody would just do things my way, if you would just listen to the way I do things, the world would be such a better place. If you would just run this meeting or drive the way I do, or talk the way I do, or study the Bible the way I do, or just live the way I do, or talk the way I do, it would be great. The world would be a better place. But when you live like that, not too many people really want to be around you. They don't really even like you. So to be that person, you're really being vain and you're really being just kind of a ugly spirited person, and letting go of control is a pretty big deal. It's something you have to do, or you control does lead to anger, and it really leads to a lot of resentments in the long run that you got to put on your 4-step later. All right, so we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. In step 3, we truly turn our will, our way, and our entire life to God, our addiction and all. Making this decision seems simple. After all, we didn't commit our lives to Christ. I didn't say that right. After all, didn't we commit our lives to Christ? We wouldn't Why wouldn't we want to turn over a shameful addiction after all the painful consequences it has caused? But this is more than salvation and more than asking God to take away our consequences. In step 3, we intentionally release our hopes, dreams, choices, addictions, compulsions, and relationships, and give God control over all of it. This is a one time commitment, and it is also the step that opens the door to a lifelong endeavor. We practice it with ever increasing willingness and trust. In approaching the decision directed by step 3, we are challenged to trust God on a deeper level than ever before. Trusting God with everything in our lives may be difficult because of our experiences from childhood to the present, in which people have repeatedly broken our trust. Life has trained us to be skeptical and wary, to take charge of situations because we don't trust anyone. We may have learned to make life work on our own power because no one around us could be trusted to protect, help, or nurture us. As a result, we can make the mistake of generalizing the lack of God, trust in God, thinking that He expects us to take care of ourselves, at least in some parts of our lives and issues. Confronting our lack of trust in God's care is critical to working the 12 steps in our lives from step 4 through step 12. To have a successful recovery, we must learn to completely surrender ourselves and our will. As Jesus said, the only one who loses his own life for Jesus' sake will find it. Turning our Turning over our addiction and dependencies is definitely like losing our lives. This is our comfort, entertainment, relief, and reward, like a best friend who shares life with us. Letting go of it seems impossible, lonely, scary, and not a lot of fun. And then to let go, turn over my will and let go of all my life, I'll have no life left, we cry. So I just want to add my thoughts on this. So I watched 2819 Church, Philip Anthony Michael. And if you get a chance, I definitely recommend watching it. It is him talking about the two gates. It's the narrow gate and the broad gate. It's about the Sermon on the Mount. And he talks about, many people will find the broad gate, the broad way. And, he goes on to talk about There's no way I can bring, I have to go through the gate alone. I can't go through the narrow gate on anybody else's faith but mine. I'm going to go through that gate alone. I can't get through that narrow gate with that old person that sinned and robbed a bank and did all these drugs and manipulated men and was a stripper and did a life of crime and all these wrong things. I cannot get through the narrow gate with that person too. It is too much. It's heavy. It's too much extra flesh. I can't take it with me. So when they talk about, letting go of it seems impossible, lonely, scary, and not a lot of fun, that is correct. Now it seems like it was something that would have been so easy. But when that is your life and you know nothing else, it is hard, but it is possible because I did it. Many, many people have done it, and you are not alone. It is okay, and it is possible. The obstacles of the spirit realm, our self will and grandiosity, have held us in the clutches of addiction. They have created the illusion that we are in control. The message and task of step 3 is to face the fact that our control is not real. We may have the thought we had control, but God has the ultimate authority and power. When we accept this, then our dependence upon Him for the solution to our addiction and any other life problems become clear. Believing that He cares for us can also be difficult. We may have experienced tragedy, abuse, or other suffering that has caused us to lose faith in His care. From our past life experiences, we can draw erroneous conclusions about God and His character. We may try to win His favor by being good, or at least by appearing to be good. Shame about our behavior during our addictive acting out may have us thinking that we are outside the grace of God and that He is just waiting to punish us. So how do we turn our will and our lives over to the care of God and we do not trust Him? Our lives are in the balance, wavering between the painful chaos of addiction, dependencies, and the offer of new life through recovery. To make this decision, we affirm that we are taking a stand and that so that we can live. As Moses said in Deuteronomy 30:19, we have a choice to make, life or death. In our case, will it be addiction or recovery? Are we choosing the path that leads to death or to life? Although the life of addiction screams at us to seek perpetual excitement, or perhaps it is numbness we seek, we have to believe that the life God has for us is infinitely better, richer, and more satisfying. We don't have to explain God or understand Him. We just need to surrender our lives to Him. As we choose to draw close to God, God brings His reconciling love and redemptive purpose into our lives. In step 1, we admitted that we do not have power over our addiction or over anything in our lives. In step 2, we acknowledge that God does have power to heal addiction and to work in our lives. Now in step 3, we decided to turn everything over, let go, and ask for help. These acts of humility allow God's Spirit to draw near to us. When our self-will is out of the way, God can work in our hearts. There may not be immediate results, and there's not immediate results. But in turning it all over to God, we exchange our heavy burdens for the rest and peace that Jesus brings. The weariness of an addictive life can be exchanged for rest. We don't struggle or fight the addiction off. We let go by letting the fight be His. We let Jesus get in the boxing ring with our compulsive desires uh, while we rest on the sidelines, free to do His will. Over time, the obsession is relieved. It's all in God's hands now. As we choose to give our will, our thinking, our decisions, and our behavior to the care of God, we rest in the belief that He cares for us. He is with us no matter what life throws at us. With His power and His presence, we are able to stop acting out in the circumstances of our addiction. We are becoming free from the bondage of life stealing addiction. The third step decision to allow God to take over our whole life is the foundation of subsequent actions we will take to work the remainder of the 12 steps. And I want to read the third step prayer. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Okay. It says third step prayer, and this can be found on page 63 of the big book. It says, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. And it also says, God, take away my will and my life. Guide me in my recovery. Show me how to live. Sorry. And I guess I could probably also, when I'm aware of my own defects and seeking God's help to change, we ask God to mold our old ideas and help us to live up to them. We ask God what we should do about each specific matter. And that's on page 69 of the big book. When I'm afraid, we ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have me be. That is on page 68 of the big book. So every step has its own prayer. There's a morning prayer, which I could also read that to you as well. It says, God, direct my thinking today so that it is divorced of self-pity, dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, and fear. God, inspire my thinking, decisions, and intuitions. Help me to relax and take it easy. Free me from doubt and indecision. Guide me through this day and show me my next step. God, give me what I need to take care of my problems. I will ask all these things that I may be of maximum service to you and my fellow man. And that is on page 86 as well. So, the big book was made really, all the steps were taken straight from the Bible. I mean, to be honest with you, it is a religious program. It says in We Agnostics, the point of this book is not to help you get sober. The purpose is to help you find a power greater than yourself. I'm just saying, read We Agnostics. It's on the second page. So trust in God. He will help you. He will get you through everything you need to get through. It may not be your will or what you want. So, you may not think that He is helping you because it's not the way you want it to be, but you're where you're supposed to be, and it's the right time. So, hope you have a good rest of your Saturday. I am going to go see Life Search in Indianapolis. It's got a bunch of preachers. So hopefully I come back with some exciting new tips on how to spread the word. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday.